Hello everyone. In our previous section, we have seen CRUD operation for author and book router, and we have completed for search functionality, view, edit and delete functionality for both author and book. Now in this section, we are going to do the error handling, and we will see how we can do the error handling at the centralized location rather than using try catch block each and everywhere. And after that, we are going to implement our home and contact route. And once home and contact route is completed, then after that, finally, we will do our build and we will deploy our application to the IIS server. So now let's proceed. Let's flip to the Visual Studio. Now we are going to implement error handling. Error handling is a very crucial part of any application. Whenever we talk about the error handling, we should not use the try catch block. Try catch block is not a best practice to use it. So other option is implement error handling at the centralized location. So in this application, what we are going to do, we are going to create a error handler class, and then after that, that error handler is going to be inject in our app router. And in case of any error comes to the application anywhere, it will redirect to our error template page. Okay. And as well as it will log the error data. Now let's implement. Now, first of all, let's create a middleware inside our middleware folder. So let me create a new file here as error handler.ts. Inside this error handler, let's create a class as error handler. And inside this class, let's create a function variable as a public static as handle error. And inside this variable, I'm going to pass a fat arrow function. So let's create a fat arrow function over here. And inside this fat arrow function, we are going to pass the parameter as error request response and next. Okay, so error, let's give type as any, quest type as any, and then response type as any, and then finally we have next. Okay, type as any. Now whenever we have four parameters, error, request, response and next, so our express router implicitly understand that this first position is reserved for the error. Okay, now we will check in the function if we have any error into the system or not. Okay, so if we don't have any error, we will pass it to the next middleware. Okay, so now let's check. If we don't have any error, not error, then we have to just return to the next. Okay, that would be our first step. Now next we have to log our error in case of any error is there. Okay, so let's log our error, console.log, and we have to log our error as a error log, and then we will pass our error detail over here. Okay, and once we have logged our error, subsequently we have to render our error template. Okay, so now let's response.render. We have to pass our error template over here. In this temp, we have to pass the error information. Okay, so now let's pass the error information over here in the form of the object. So we are first that we are going to pass as a message, and it would be the error.message, and then we have pass the status as error.status, and finally we have to pass the code. Okay, code would be error.status code. Okay, so now we have implemented over here our error handler class, and this is for entire application. Okay, now we should be having some custom error handling as well. So now let's show me that how we have to handle our custom error. So now let me create one more static variable over here, public static handle unknown URL. Suppose that user is typing some unknown URL in the browser, so we have to handle that as well. Okay, so now handle unknown URL. Okay, and let's pass as a fat arrow function over here, and inside this function we are going to pass request, response and next. Okay, type of any, response type of any, and next type of any. Okay, I'm here just giving type of any. Now here we are not passing the error parameter because we are going to create our custom error. So now we have to create a custom error like const error, that I can mark it as a any, and then we can use our error class new error, and what we can give the message over here as can't find, and we have to give the URL. Okay, so now we can, I'm using template literal over here, that is came into the ECMAScript 6. So whenever we are using the template literal, we can pass our variable inside our dollar then curly bracket. Okay, so here request.original URL on the server. Okay, this should be the error message, and then after that we are going to pass as a error status, the second parameter that we have error status. So here we are going to pass as a fail, and third thing that we have to pass our error status code. Okay, so here I'm going to pass as error code as 404. Okay, and then after that we will redirect it to next middleware, that is the error middleware. Okay, so what we are going to pass inside our next as a error. Okay, now this function is going to be handled inside our this error handler. Okay, now we have created our error handler. We have to expose this error handler, so we are going to expose it. So we have to export default, and then we have to use the error handler. Okay, error handler. Okay, so now we have created our error handler middleware. Now we have to inject this middleware to our express router. Okay, so now go to our server.ts file. Here first of all we have to import that middleware. Okay, so now let's import it. Import error handler from middleware error handler. Okay, now we need to inject this error handler to our express router. So here we are going to use as a app.all, and we are having any star any other route a part of that we have defined in our application, then it should call our middleware unknown URL. Okay, so now here error handler dot unknown handle unknown URL. Okay, and then after that we have to inject our error handler middleware as well. Okay, so app dot use, because here we are going to handle all of our error. Okay, so here error handler dot handle error. Okay, now the third step that we are going to create a error template page. So now inside our view folder, let's create a error template error.ejs. so now let me add a error template page over here. So if you see inside this page, I have just given whatever the message that we are getting inside our error template, we are passing it here. And here if we have code, error status code as a 500, then we are showing as an internal server error. Else if we have a 403, then we are showing as a message session expired, please sign in. And any other code if we have a part of 403, then we are showing please go back to the home page. Okay, we can implement any other code if we have. I have just given some sample over here. Okay, so now let's control A, control K, F. So now it's getting formatted. Now let's open a terminal. Now let's run this application. We can use nodemon src server.ts, as well as we can run npm run dev as well. Okay, which have already been defined. For now I'm using nodemon server.ts. Now our server is ready. So let's see. Yep, let's log in on any page. So in order to show the error messages, let me give expiration time for our JWT token. It's just for 10 seconds. So let's go to our user controller. Inside our user controller, here we are configuring our expiration in time. So here I'm just going to give as a 10 second. Okay, let's save it. So now our server is ready. So let's go and sign in. Now let's click on book, author, and book, author, home. So still it's not redirecting to the our error page. So let's see what is the issue we have. So in our we are verifying the token over here. So inside our token, here we have JWT verify, and here we are passing. Okay, so here we are sending the status as a 403. So what exactly we have to do over here? In case of any error, we have to just next, and we have to pass the error. Okay, and we can set the status code as a error dot status code as a 403. Okay, now we are not required this line, so remove this. Now let's save it, and we are going to remove this try catch block, so we are not required anymore. Now let's control A, control KF, so it's getting formatted. Save it. Now our server is up and running. Now let's see. Let's log in once again, and here go to the book, and then go to the author, then go to home, and then go to the author. Yeah, so if you see here, we are seeing the message as a JWT expired and session expired, and here we have please sign in. Okay, but we should not show this JWT expired. Okay, so what we have to do, if you see here, error has been logged over here, JWT expired. Okay, whenever we are having this message in our error template, we can just mention as here there is some problem. Okay, and then if 500, then we can show as a internal server error, otherwise we can see as a session expired. Otherwise, if other than 403, then we can show as a go back to the home page. Okay, now let's save it. So now our server is up. So let's go back and log in once again. Now let's sign in and click here home, author. Let's wait for 10 seconds. So almost 10 seconds over. Yeah. So if you see here, we are getting there is some problem. Session expired. Please sign in. Okay. Now let's check for the unknown URL. So go to sign in page once again. Sign in. And if I here pass some random URL, okay, and I enter, then immediately it goes to the our error page. As soon as there is some problem, please go back to the home page. Okay. So now once he goes to the home page, then there's some problem, session expired. Okay, because we have given just 10-second time for the expiration in. Okay, so now let's sign in. So now let's review what we have done. So first of all, we have created our error handler class over here. In this, we have given an error handler middleware and handle unknown URL middleware. Okay, and subsequently we have injected this middleware to our express router. Okay, and at the end of the router we are using the error handler. We have injected our error handler middleware. Okay, and eventually we have created our error template.ejs file where all of the error are going to be redirected and displayed. Okay, you can design as per your requirement. Here I have just given an example how you can implement the error handling at the centralized place. Okay, now further we are going to implement our home and contact route, and once it's done, then ultimately we are going to build our application and deploy. Okay, now let's proceed for the implementation of home and contact route. Now once user click on home link, then they should be able to see the list of recently added books. Okay, so session expired. As of now we have given the session for 10 seconds. Now let's change that. So here we are going to give as a 900 seconds. Okay, now let's implement our home page. So home page is coming from the index controller. So here on get index function, we are going to find out books that is being added recently. Okay, create a const books. Let's give type as any equal to, we are going to fetch the data from the database. So await book dot find, and then we are going to use the sort method. Okay, dot sort, and we are going to sort on the basis of created at time. Okay, so here we will pass as a created at in the descending order. Okay, so now it would be in a descending order. Here it's not finding the book, so let's add it. Let's import this book. Import book from, let's copy it from the book controller, model book. Okay, let's take for the author as well. Okay, so now here we are using as await, so we have to use function as async as well. Now once our list is getting sorted, then we have to find out only two books. Okay, so now use the limit for 2. Okay, and now we will execute our query. Okay, so now it's going to give the result for 2 books which is recently added. Okay, and we will pass this books information inside our index page. Now let's pass this book, since we have to bind these books to our index page. Okay, now let's go back to our index page. Here we will use the same template that we have used for our book index page. So here I'll copy the entire things from here and let's paste it in our index page. And so here we are not required any form here, so we will remove the form, and we are not required any. So now control A, control KF. Now it should be recently added, and then we are going to render our book grid. Okay, and in our book grid we have to pass our book information. So here comma, and here we are going to pass our books. Okay, our server is up. Now let's test it. Sign in. It's giving some error. Let's see what exact error is. So here it's showing could not find the include file partial book grid. Okay, so it's not getting binded. Let's see why. Because we are having here inside partial we have book grid, and we are using inside our index. Okay, and this index is outside of this partial. Okay, so here from the root directory partials we have to use book grid.ejs. Okay, now let's test it once again. Let's save it. Now server is up. Let's refresh this page. Yeah. So now we are able to see here recently added books. Last time we added Michael Jordan and then after that we added Malala. So we are seeing here 2 books which were recently added. Now if you see here, we are not able to see the author details, okay, because we have not binded our author. So now let's fix this issue. So in our index controller here, so we know that we have to use the populate, okay. So here we find our 2 books, then after that we have to use our populate method, populate. And what we have to populate? We have to populate author, okay. So here author. Now hopefully we would be able to see that author detail as well. So now our server is up. So let's see and refresh this page once again. Yep. If you see here, now we are able to see our author detail as well. Now let's go back to our book index page. Here these 2 books were added lastly. So these 2 books were coming on our home index page, okay. Now let's add some more book. I'm going to add over here Harry Potter, and author is J.K. Rowling. Let's give some date over here and give page count random 234 and give the description here magic story. Now save it. As soon as we save it, it went to our index page and data is getting stored to the database. And now if we go to the home page, so here we will see the last 2 added books. Just now we added Harry Potter and previously we had added Michael Jordan. So now we can see only 2 books on the home page. Okay. Now let's add few more books. Add books. Now we are going to add Hobbit. The Hobbit. And now select the author. Just select as Christina Lamb. And here 27 and 5456 and then magic story. Save it. As soon as we save it, it's redirected to our index page and here we can see the book detail. Okay. Now let me add one more book. Let's add The Girl of Ink and Stars. The Girl of Ink and Stars. Select author. Let's give as a J.K. Rowling and 5 page count as 56. Now description. Let's give as a Tale of Wonder. Okay. Now this book also added. Let's add one more book. The Handmaid Tale. Okay. So now The Handmaid Tale. Select author. I'm just selecting J.K. Rowling. 29th page count as of 454. Description. A Tale of Wonder. Okay. Now save it. So now you can see, as soon as we are adding the record, it's coming to our search book page, index page, and here we can see all the divs are getting wrapped. Okay. And if you go to the home page, recently we had added a Handmaid Tale and The Girl of Ink and Stars. So these 2 books are getting displayed over here. So we have implemented our home page as well. Now let's implement our contact page. Once user is going to click on contact link, then it should redirect to our contact page. So now let's create a contact route. So let's go back to our Visual Studio. Here inside our controller, let's create a contact controller. So let's copy the index controller and paste inside our controllers itself. Okay. So now let's rename it. I'm going to make it as a contact controller. Here I'm going to make as a contact controller. So here we will use the get contact and save contact. Okay. Now we will remove all those things from here and we will export this contact controller. Okay. Now let's close this terminal. Now in the get contact, let's render our contact page. So here I'm going to response.render and we are going to use contact index. Okay. So far we have not created our index template inside contact. So we will create that for now. And then after that we have to pass our user detail. Okay. And user detail that we will get from our request user. So here const user equal to request.users. Control A, Control KF, formatted now. And we will implement the save functionality later on. Now let's create a template inside our contact. So we are going to create one more folder inside view as a contact, and inside contact we are going to create an index page. Okay. So here index.ejs. Now let me use a template for our contact page. Now let's paste it. So I have used a template over here which I have been already created. So if you see here I have taken a form and action I have given as a contact. Okay. As a post method that I'm going to save it into the database. Okay. And here I have given my contact detail over here, my Gmail ID, phone number, address, and then after that I have given name. So you can provide your name here, and then after that your email address, then you can provide your email address, then you can put your subject, and then you can provide your message. Okay, and finally here we have a button as close button, and then we have a save button. Once user will click on save button, then this form data is going to be saved to our database. Okay, now let's create a model as well. So I'm just going to copy this user model and paste it here only, and typing name as a contact.ts. So here in contact.ts I'm going to iUser as iContact, contact, iUser, iContact, contact. What all the fields that we are going to use. Now let's add all the fields over here. So we are using name, and it's required true. We are not going to use as an index or unique true here. We remove it. And then we are using email. So it would be type string and required. And then we are using subject. And here we are going to use the required true. Okay. And lastly, we are going to use the message. Okay. Now remove this line. It's not required anymore. So now our contact schema is ready. Contact model is ready. We are going to add this contact schema over here. Okay, so our contact model is ready. Now we will implement our save functionality. So let's go back to our contact controller. Here we are going to make an object of contact. So here const contact, and that is new contact, and inside that we are going to pass all our properties. Okay, so here we have a name, and that we are going to get from request.body, body.name, and then we are taking 4 more property over here, and email, and then we are going to use the subject, and then finally we are having message. Okay, here let's import our contact. Let's import manually contact from model contact. So here we are not, here we have given misspelled as a CONTACT. Okay, so it should be contact. Now once we get the information for all the contact detail, then const new contact equal to, we have to save that. Okay, so saving to the database. So let's await, and contact dot save. Okay, and once record is getting saved, then we have to redirect to our index page. Okay, so response dot redirect. Let's redirect to our index page. Okay, so our save functionality is also completed. Now let's add this route to our contact route inside our route folder. We don't have any route contact route file, so let's create it, rename it as a contact route. Now inside this, let me remove all this and remove one get. Okay, so here by default we would be having our get route, get contact, and here this is our contact controller. Now let's import this contact controller here, contact controller. Okay, now let's use this contact controller over here, and here save contact. Okay, and now we have to add this contact route to our express router. Okay, so go to our server.ts file here. Now let's add it, contact, and here it would be contact router. Okay, and now this contact router needs to be imported. So let's import this contact router, and here we will be having as a contact route. Okay, so hopefully this should be working. Our server is getting ready. Yep, our server is ready now. Let's test it. So let's log in once again, sign in, and once user click on the contact page, so it's showing some problem. Let's see what is the issue we have. Cannot find contact, CONTACT. Okay, so there is some problem here. It's a typo. Let's search it here in the header page. Here's CONTACT. Okay, folder should be fine. Now let's save it and refresh this page once again. Sign in and click on the contact page. As soon as we click on the contact page, we see here this is contact us. This is my email ID, my phone number, and this is my address. Okay, now if you want to contact us, so you can just put your name, Alok Kumar, and then put your email, alok.kumar@gmail.com, and then subject. In the subject you can mention thank you, and in the message please subscribe my channel. Okay, now let's save it. So its saving is having some issue. Let's see. Cannot find contact on the server. Okay, so let's see here in the contact route. Oh, so here we have given register, sorry. So let's update with the contact. Okay, now server is ready. Now refresh this page. Here Alok Kumar and alok.kumar.@gmail.com, and then subject thank you, message please subscribe my channel. Let's save it. Still it's not getting saved. Cannot find contact on the server. Okay, so here we have passing contact, and then we are having contact controller, save contact. It's okay. Now let's go to our server.ts file. Here we are passing as a contact. That's correct. And save contact, and let's check our index page, contact index page. Here contact and method is post. In the contact route, here we are passing the method as post. Okay, so everything looks good. Let's sign in. Contact a. Okay, let's save it. It's not saving. Cannot find contact on the server. Yeah, sorry, I got it. So basically here we are passing the post, and we are already using the contact, and then after that we are using our contact on top of one more contact. Okay, so that's the reason it's not getting called. Here basically it would be a default route as a post method. Okay, so hopefully this should be working this time. Now let's sign in once again. Go to contact, and here Alok Kumar, alok.kumar@gmail.com, and subject thank you, and message please subscribe my channel. Okay, now let's save it. Yeah, so it's successfully saved. Now let's check into the database. Now browse collection. Here in our library management we have our contact collection. Inside contact collection our data is getting stored. Okay, so now we have completed our error handling as well as our home and contact route. Okay, now further we are going to build our application, and then we will deploy it. Okay, but before that let's do some cleanup in the code. So let's start from the beginning. We will see in the config.ts, everything looks good over here. In the author controller, let's control kf, so everything is formatted. Now book controller, here we are author controller we are not using, so we'll remove it, and control a, control kf, so everything looks good over here. Now go to the contact page. Here just now we have created, here we are not using author and book, so remove this. And index controller, here we are not using author, so remove this, as well as we are going to remove our console log. So let's first remove everything if we are using. So here now we are not using try catch block anymore, so remove this. Here also remove try block, here also remove try block. Yep, so we have removed try block. Now control a, control kf, so it's getting formatted. Now in the error handler, yep, everything looks good. Now verify token, yep, looks good. Now go to the model. This is our author model. Everything looks good over here. In the book, yep, looks good. Now go to the contact, good. And user, control a, control kf. Now go to our, here this is our public folder where we have all our image and script. Here I have validation.js file, and here I have style.css. Okay, now in the route, so we have our route. Okay, this is all our post and contact route, control a, control kf. Now go to index route, yeah, looks good. User route, it's also looking good, control a, control kf. And then go to our view, control a, control kf. Index page, new, control a, control kf. Okay, now go to author view, control K, control F. Similarly we can do for the other pages as well. Okay, I'm not going to do for the other pages. Now let's see the server.ts file. Here control A, control KF. So everything looks good. Now let's commit the code what we have done so far. So open a git bash terminal, git status, git add dot, it's going to add all those files. Now let's check again git status. Now let's commit all those files, git commit -m and give the message as implemented home and contact route and error handling. So all these files have been committed. Now we are at a branch as of v7. Now let's create a new branch. Git branch -m version 8. Okay, sorry, it's -m version 8. So now we are at the version 8. Now git push origin head. So meanwhile it's getting push. Let's open our GitHub. Here go to the library management, and if you see here, as just now our v8 branch is committed. Okay, so go to our src folder, and inside we have our, let's see if we any model. So we have our contact model over here. Okay, so code have been committed and pushed to our repository. Now further we are going to work on build the application, and then after that we will deploy it. Okay, now further we are going to build our application. Now let's flip to the Visual Studio. So if you remember that in our first part we have already did the configuration for our build application. So let's go to our package.json file. Here we have written the command build all. So this command is going to be first of all clean build, and here our tsc command is going to compile all those TypeScript file and convert into the JavaScript. Okay, and finally our start command is going to run the application. Now let's open one more git bash terminal over here. Let's close other files. Now here we are going to run our npm run build all command. Okay, so once we run our npm run build all command, first of all it's going to clean. So it's going to delete this build folder, and then after that it's going to compile. So all this TypeScript file is getting compiled, and then it's converting into the JavaScript file and copying it to the build folder. Okay, and finally it's going to start the application from the build folder. So if you see here, now build folder has been deleted, and now it's compiling. Our TypeScript compiler is compiling all our TypeScript file. So now it's compiled. You can see now in the build folder we have all of our JavaScript file which is being transpiled from TypeScript to JavaScript. So it's showing like port 4001 is already being used. Okay, so yep. So now let's close this. Now go back to our git bash terminal. Let's run it once again. So now it's executing our npm run all clean tsc all the commands subsequently. So here if you see, build folder has been cleaned, and now it's compiling. Yep, it's compiled now. You can see here all the folders, and if you go our controller, if you see all the controller files are converted from TypeScript to JavaScript file. In the route also all the routes are converted from TypeScript to JavaScript file. Okay, now our application is running from this build folder. Now let's see. So it's giving an error, failed to look up view error in the view directory. Okay, so why? Because of all these files are being copied except our public folder as well as our view folder. Okay, because these two folders are not having any TypeScript file, that's the reason these two folders are not being copied over there. Okay, so now let's copy with the shell scripting. So let's create another folder over here, the root level as a tools. Here I'm just going to create and one more file here as copy assets.ts. Inside copy assets I'm going to use module cell.js. Let's hide this terminal. So here I'm going to import star as cell from cell.js. Okay, now let's install this cell.js. So let's open one more command prompt here, npm install @types cell.js. Okay, so cell.js has been installed. Now here we can use our cell.copy. So here cp is the function name where we can copy the files from source to destination. Okay, so now the first parameter is here that we have to pass -r. -r is basically copy the files recursively inside the folders. Okay, so now here we will give the source is src, and views, this is the file that we are going to copy it to, and destination is build src. Okay, inside build src folder all the views are getting copied. Similarly we have to do for the public folder as well. Okay, build views, and then our public folder should goes to our build public. Okay, basically it should goes to our build folder directly. Okay, because we are copying everything here. Now it should be working fine. Now let's Control C, npm run build all. It's a bit time consuming, but it's worth. So our build directory deleted now. Now our tsc command executing. Now tsc done. Now it's copying the file. Now it's running our application. Now our server is up and running on 4001 port from this build folder. Now let's verify this build folder. So if you see config, controller, middleware, model, public. Yeah. So all these files are being copied there. And inside the view, all the view files are also being copied inside the view folder. Okay. Now let's see if it's been working or not. So let's refresh this page. Yeah. Now let's sign in. Now we are executing from the build folder. So if you go to the author, go to the book and go to the contact. So if you see here, we have completed our build and executed from our build folder. So it's working absolutely fine for each and every route. Now further we'll proceed for the deployment. So first of all, I'm going to deploy this application on our local IIS server. Yes, we can deploy our node application on our IIS server as well. So let's see how we can do that. But before that, let's commit our the code, whatever we have done so far. So here in our git bash command, check git status. Now let's add all these files. So git add dot. Okay. Now let's create a new branch. As of now, we are on V8. So git branch -m, and I'm going to branch give as a V9. Okay. Now git commit build completed. So now as of now we are on V9 branch. Now let's push the code. Git push origin head. Okay. So all the code have been pushed now. If you want to take the reference, you can take the reference from the GitHub. Now further we are going to do the deployment in our IIS server. Okay. Whenever we do the deployment in our production environment, then we have to take care of several things. And one of them is error logging. So we cannot simply console.log in our production environment because we cannot see the console there, right? So we have to write our error somewhere in the file system. So we have to implement some logging mechanism over there in our production environment. As of now, we are having a lot of loggers available for our node application like Morgan logger, Winston logger, log4j.s logger. Here I am going to implement log4j.s logger and I'll remove all the console logs from the application. Okay. So now let's see what all the changes we need to do to implement our log4j.s logger. So first of all, I'm going to create a logger file inside our middleware folder. So create a logger file logger.ts. Okay, and inside this logger.ts I'm going to use log4j.s. Okay, so now let's install the log4j.s module, npm install log4j.s, and meanwhile let's import this file. Import log4j.s from log4j.s. Okay, and once we have imported, then after that we have to configure it. Okay, so now let's use the configuration const config as, let's create a type of any, and inside this object we are going to use the appender and categories. Okay, appenders, and then we are going to use the category. So first of all, let's give the value inside the appenders. So we have to give the file type. Okay, so here we are going to give file, and that would be a type of file. Okay, inside that we have to provide all the property. So it would be type, and type would be file. Okay, then we have to provide the file name also, where we have to log our data. Okay, so file name, and file name we are going to provide as a here at the root level we are going to create logs, and then inside the logs we are going to create the error.log file. Okay, and we as well as we can provide our console also. So here we can provide console, and inside that we can provide as a type as a console. Okay, and once we have done with our appender, we have to provide our categories, and inside these categories we have to provide error and default. Okay, so now let's provide the categories here. I'm going to provide the two category here. One category is error, and inside the error we are going to add the appenders. What appenders that we are going to use? Appenders, I'm going to use the file. Okay, here that file that we have given, file appenders. Okay, and then we have to give the label as well, and label would be error. Similarly, we have to provide the default as well. Default is mandatory. Okay, so here default also I'm going to provide as a file, and label as the info. Okay, now once we have, this is config. So once we have done with our config, then we have to configure our log4.js. So here we can use log4.js.configure. Here we have a method as a configure, and we can simply pass this config data inside our configure method. Okay, so here config, that's it. Okay, and once it is done, then we have to export our log4.js, because we are going to import in our several pages wherever it's required. Okay, so now here export default. I have already explained about the default export. So log4.js. Okay, so now here we have exported our log4.js. Now this logger can be implemented anywhere in the system. Okay, so now let's save it. Now let's implement this log4.js logger inside our error handler page. So here we are writing our console log. Okay, so now we are not going to use this console log anymore. So we will comment this line, and in place of that we are going to use our log4.js. So first of all, we have to import our log4.js file here. So here we will write import log4.js from, we are going to use logger, right? And then we have to now here write console const logger. Okay, and that we are, and here we have in our log4.js there is a method get logger. Okay, so we can get the type of logger. We have console logger, we have file logger, so here we can get the file logger. Okay, so I'm just going to here write log4.js dot get logger. Okay, and here we can get, we have two type, console and file. Already we have seen here, right? So here we have console and file. So I'm going to take the file one. Okay, so here I'm going to use the file. I'll simply give it the file. Now we have the logger over here. Now we just have to log the data. Okay, so what we will do here, logger dot, here we have several things, logger dot info, logger dot error. Okay, so we can just do the logger dot error. Okay, and simply we can log the error detail over here. That's it. So all done. If any error will come into the system, it's going to log the error in our logger file. So let's create a logger file as well. At the root level, I'm going to create a folder as logs, and inside this error log we should be having a file as a error.log. Okay, so now let's create a file inside this folder, error.log. That's it. I think this error log file would be created automatically, but anyway, so now let's implement this logger in our server.ts file as well. Okay, so we need two things. One, that we have to import. Now let's import the logger here as well. Import log4.js from middleware logger. Okay, now second thing, we have to create the logger. So we can copy this line from log4.js get logger and here. So now here we have our logger as well. Now let's do the changes wherever we have our console log. So here in case of any error, we are writing the console.log. So in place of console.log, we are going to use logger.error. Okay, that's it. And here also we are logging console.log. Okay, now let's replace this console.log with logger.info. Okay, that's it. And now let's see anywhere else that we are using console.log. Yep, here also we are using the console.log. So we are going to replace this with logger.info. Okay, that's it. Now let's save it. So that's all the changes that we are required to do in order to implement our log4.js logger. Okay, now let's see if it is working or not. So here we are going to nodemon, or directly we can run npm run dev, npm run dev. Okay, indirectly it's going to execute our nodemon server.ts file. So now open the error log, because now we cannot see the console log over here. Yeah, now you can see here we are seeing our log information is being logged. Okay, now further we are going to check if any error come into the system, it's going to be logged over here or not. So now let's do some changes in our environment file. Let's change the password as I'm just appending 0 over here. Now let's save it, let's stop it, and now let's run it once again. Okay, so now what will happen, our system is not going to connect with the Mongo database, so it should give an error, and that error should be logged inside our error log file. Okay, so now if you see, authentication got failed here, bad authentication failed, and log information is getting logged to our error.log file. Okay, so our logger is working as expected. Now let's change our password over here. Let's save it. So as soon as our server is ready, we would be able to see here the log. Okay, and that would be only information. So now here you can see information have been logged. So our database connected successfully and server is running on port 4001. Okay. There is a one more possibility that any uncaught exception are there in the system. Okay. So in order to handle those exceptions, we have to write here process.on, and here we have to write uncaught exceptions. And whenever we have the uncaught exception, then we have to call a callback function. Okay, so I'm going to write a callback function. This is exception. I'm going to write a callback function over here. So function, and inside that we would be getting the error, and here. Okay, now simply we can just log our error here, and we will mention here that this is our uncaught exception, and here we will add $sign curly bracket. Okay, and we will give the error. Now let's control A, control KF. This file is getting formatted. So now everything is handled from the logging perspective. Now let's do one more thing. So whenever we are in the production, we are required our favy icon file to configure. Okay, here in our public folder, I'm going to copy this. Here I'm going to copy our icon file. So let's go to our reveal in the file explorer. Inside this public folder, our icon file. Okay, and now we will configure this icon file, because this icon file is going to be served by a get request. So we will create a request over here. So I'm just going to copy this, and here I'll mention as a get icon, and this get icon is going to be respond from the response.send file, because now we are going to send the file, and we are going to send the file as a favicon.ico. Okay, ico, that's all, because we have configured our static folder as a public, and directly we have given this icon file inside our public folder, so we have not to append any path over here. Okay, so we can directly write like this. Now we need to call this in our router file. So go to our route file here in our index router. Here I'm going to, and that particular favy icon file is getting by the favicon.ico. Okay, so favy. Okay, now let's save this file. So we have configured our icon. So now let's see if it's working or not. So already our application is running. Now let's go back to our application. So now let's refresh. So if you see here, we are able to see the icon here on the browser title bar. Now let's log into the application. Here I have noticed one more thing, that if I sign out, then it's going to delete our one of the record. Okay, so now let me show you. First of all, let's go to our book, and I'm going to add one more book here. Here just test delete. I'm going to author as a JK Rowling, and here I'm going to 27 page count and 334 and giving book. Okay, and now here test. Now let's save it. Okay, now if you see, once I'll sign out, then it's going to delete this record. Okay, so let's sign out. See, if you see the URL here, it's going to the method delete. Why this is happening? Let's see that. If we go to our header.ejs file, that is there inside the view partial, and this is our header.ejs file. Okay, so here we have not given the ID for this form. Okay, and here we are checking the form. So whatever form it is getting, it's going to be submit with that. Okay, so let's give an ID over here for this form. So I'm going to give an ID here, and that I will give ID as a form sign out. Okay, and I'm going to take this form sign out ID over here, and this is has that selector is required whenever we are using the ID, and if we are using the class, then we are using to dot. Okay, in order to select any element in the jQuery, because here we are using the jQuery, right? So now we should be good. Let's save it. Now let's see if this is working as expected or not. So go to our application, refresh it, now log in it. Now if I go to the book and I sign out, user goes sign out, and it's not deleting any record. So this is working as expected. Now let's comment all the console logs which we have in our application. So go to our src folder, and here find in folder, and we are going to find console.log. Okay, so if you see here, these many console logs have been used. So we are going to comment all those consoles. So I'm going to use Control Shift H. So here I can replace my console log // and then console log. Okay, this is already being commented, so I'm going to remove this. So these author controller, book controller and user controller, all the console log will be commented. Let's do it. So all these console log have been commented. Now one more thing we have here in our config.ts file, if you see here, we have given hard coded value as a port. Okay, so here we are going to use the server port from the our environment configuration file. Okay, so here we will give, and if you see in our environment file, here we are having a server.port. So we are going to use it here, server.port. Okay, it's better to use all in caps if you are using, then server underscore port, and same we are going to use it in our config.ts file as well. Okay, so now most of the changes are done. Now let's check if everything is working fine. Go to our application, refresh this page, sign in. Yep, it seems like everything is working. Go to author, book, contact and sign out. So everything is working now. So now our application is ready to deploy. In our next section, we are going to see how we are going to deploy our application in IIS server. But before that, let's commit all the changes what we have done so far. So here I'm going to open a git bash terminal. Here I'm going to check git status. So if you see here, let me make it a bit bigger. All these files have been changed. So now I'm going to add all those files. So git add dot. It's going to add all those files for the commit. So git add dot. Now let's check again git status. So if you see, our error log is not, these log files are not committed. So that's okay. Now let's git commit -m, and but before that, let's create our, as of now we are in v9 branch, so let's create a new branch. So git branch -m, and we are going to give the branch as a v10. Okay, so now we are on v10 branch. If you see here right side, we can see as of now on we are on v10 branch, and here also we are on v10 branch. Now git commit -m, and then we have to give the message. Okay, here I am going to give a message as well, logger implemented. Now git push origin head. Okay, so all the changes have been pushed to our repository. Now let's create a fresh build as well. So we are going to run our command npm run build all. So this command is going to execute all of our clean compiler, copy asset and start. All these commands are going to be executed together. I believe we are already running this. Yeah, so let's close this, otherwise it will give an error. Now if you see, cleanup already done. Now it's compilation also done, and copy asset is in progress for now. Now copy asset also completed. Now it's going to execute our application. Okay, now let's see if our application is running or not on our 4001 port. So let's, yep, so if you see here, now on 4001 port our application is running. This application is running from our build folder. Okay, so everything is working as expected, and now our application is ready for the deployment. So now in our next section, we are going to deploy our application in IIS server, and we will see what all the steps are involved step by step in our deployment. So now let's see that. Now let's start the deployment. In order to deploy in IIS, we have to do some setup. So let's do that setup first. Here I'm going to provide all those setup steps in our readme file. So let me add at the root level here a readme file, readme.md. Okay, and here I'm going to provide you all the steps that we are going to follow for our deployment. Okay, so these all are the steps that we have to follow. First of all, we have to install IIS node. Okay, so let's first install the IIS node. Go to our browser. Here from its official website, you can download the latest version. As of now, this version is supporting our Windows 10 and 11 both. Okay, so let me download this file. Here I'm going to use 64-bit. Once it's been downloaded, now let's install it. Accept, install, yes. So now we have installed our Node.js. Now let's do the next step. So after installing MSI, it will add the new module called IIS node, which point to a DLL. Okay, so now let's see that. Open your IIS. So here we have init mgr. Now here you can verify that inside our module. And if you see here, now we are seeing here IS node, and this is pointing to our program file IS node and IS node.dll. Okay. Now let's see the next step. Open your IS manager. At the server level, feature delegation handler mapping needs to be read write. Okay. So now let's see that at the server level, here we have the feature delegation. Open this feature delegation, and we should be having here handler mapping, and this handler mapping needs to be having read write access. Okay. And suppose that you are seeing only read only access over here, then we can change it as a read write access. Okay. Now let's see the next step. Now we need to create an application with its own application pool and pointing where created our node.js app with the port. Okay. So now let's create our site. Go to our IS. So here we are going to create a new site. But before creating a new site, let's copy our all the build file inside our www root folder. So here we have all our files. This is our build folder. So let's go to our reveal in the file explorer. Now we need to copy all these files inside our www root folder. So here you can find your www root folder over here in C drive inside inetpub, and then here you can find it www root. Okay. Now here I'm going to create a application as a library, and inside this library I'm going to copy all those files. Okay. All my files have been copied here. If you see here, we are not seeing the node module folder, right? So we have to install that all those modules here as well at the server side. Okay. So now let's open a command prompt, and node.js command prompt, run as administrator, and here we can take this path and cd change directory. Now we are in this directory. Okay. Now we have to run our npm install. So our npm install is running. Let's get it finished first. So now if you see here, our node module folders have been created and all the modules are getting installed. So the modules have been installed now. Now let's give a port over here, our environment file. So already we have the port 4001. Let's give a port as a 5001, and we can save it. It's required the administrator mode. Yes. Now it's going to be run as administrator. Now it's open in administrator mode. Now let's save it. Control S. So now we are going to execute our application on port number 5001. Okay. And now let's do one more changes here in our server file. So if you see here in our server file, we have given the configuration here for all our static pages as a src public, right? So as of now we don't have src, so we are going to give directly as a public. Okay. Now let's save it. So now let's go back to our IIS, and here we are going to create a site, add site, and I'm going to give name site as a library, and here I'm going to give the physical path as C inetpub and www root, and then here we have library just now which we have configured. Okay. And here we are going to assign some port. Now our application is going to run on 5001, so here we will assign just 5000. Okay, because IIS node is taking care of creating server and exposing the port from own itself, and that is already we have defined in our environment file, that is 5001. So here we can give any port apart from 5001. Okay. Now let's save it. So as soon as you save it, you can see here we have created our site, and there is application pool also created correspondingly named as library. Okay. So now go to our website here. Now let's go to our next step. Next step is in our IIS manager, your site handler mapping module. Add the module mapping as a IIS node and path as a server.js. Okay. So now let's go to our IIS here. So here we have handler mapping. Inside our handler mapping, we are not seeing here node, IIS node. So we are going to add it. So now let's add a module mapping over here. Here we have to give the request path as a server.js, and then we can add the module as IIS node. From here you can select IIS node, and then after that we can give name also as a IIS node. Okay. Now let's click OK. As soon as you click on OK, you will see in our folder there is a web.config file created. Okay, in this web.config file we are seeing here handler is added as a IIS node and path is server.js and module is IIS node. Okay, so if you see in our readme file here we have added this handler. Okay, now the next thing we are going to configure our rewrite URL. Okay, rewrite module to index.js in the web.config file. Okay, so now let's see how we can do that. Go to our IIS here in our application. If you see here we have rewrite URL rewrite. Okay, double click on that. Here you can add a rule. You can just create a blank rule here, and now here we can give the name as node.js, and pattern we have to give for all. So dot star, that the pattern that we are going to give, and then we have to give our accent type. Accent type would be rewrite, and then we have to give our rewrite URL as a server.js. Okay, now we have to select our stop processing of subsequent rule. Okay, now let's save it, apply. Now let's see the next step. Next step is verify IIS manager configure editor system.web server IIS node. It should be pointing to our C program file node server node.js node.exe file. Okay, now let's go back to our IIS. So here we have our configuration editor. Let's open it, and we have to see here if suppose that IIS node is not getting selected. So you can select it from here, IIS node, and you can see the option over here, right? It needs to be pointing out to our node.exe wherever we have installed our node, right? So we have installed our node on C program file node.js node.exe. Okay, now let's save it, and yes, now if you go back to our folder and try to open this web.config file, let's open it. Let's open with Visual Studio Code itself. So if you see here we have a handler as a IIS node, and we have given path as a server.js module IIS node. So here we have our configuration for our handler, and here we have configuration for our rewrite URL, and finally we have our node processing command line. So these all configurations are necessary in order to execute our node application on IIS. Okay, now let's close this file. So the same configuration file which I have given over here might be in case you required in the future for the reference. Okay, now the next step, we have to give access to the IIS user for our application folder. So now let's go to our library folder inside our www root, and here what we can do, we have to go to the property for this particular folder and go to the security, and here we can edit our permission. And here if you don't find IIS user, so what you can do, you can just try add, and here IIS underscore I USR, yes. Okay, and you can just check name, so you will find it here, user, this group. Okay, so you can just click on OK, and then after that select this group, and then you can provide the access, allow for full control, modify and write. Okay, now let's apply. So permission are getting applied for our IIS users. Yep, so it's done now. Now let's go back to our IIS and let's try to run our application. So here we have browse 5000, but in fact our application should be running on 5001. Okay, so let's give 5001. Yep, so our application is running. Now let's sign in. Yep, so it's working. So if you see here, our application has been deployed to our IIS and it's running on 5001 port. Okay, now let's change the port in our root folder. Here library, and here we have our environment file. Let's change the port. So now here we have, let's change the port as a 5002. Save it, and now let's go back to our IIS once again and we can restart. Now let's restart our application pool, stop and start. Now let's go back to our application. Here now let's browse, and now if we try to run on our 5001, our application won't be working, right? So now let's see the port on 5002. So you can see our 5002, our application is started working, right? So now let's log in and see if all the functionality are working or not. So q @q, you remember that we have the user and the password 123. Okay, now let's sign in. Yep, so it's working as expected. It's redirecting to our home page. Let's go to the author. This is also working, and let's go to the book. The book is also working as expected. Now go to the contact. This is also working, and now let's sign out. So our application is working and we can see the log as well. So our application should be having the log. So now let's see here, see if log folders have been created, and inside the log there is an error file generated. Okay, and you can check it. If you see database connected successfully, earlier that we have connected to our 5001 port, and then after that we have connected to our 5002 port. Okay, so and here it's JWT token that was required. So our application is working as expected, as well as we have deployed our application in IIS, as well as if you would like to deploy this application into the Docker container, that we can also do. We can create our Docker file and we can create the image and we can create a container for our image. Okay, and we can run our application from Docker container. That I can do in a later session. And if you want that video, please comment me. I'll make that video for you. And here I'm going to complete this project, but still if you guys are having some issues or any concerns or anything is not being clear, then you can reach out to me on my WhatsApp, on my Facebook or my Twitter. I'll try to fix your issues as soon as possible. And I hope that if you have created this application from scratch and you have gone through the entire part, then I'm pretty much sure that you would be able to work on any Node application, Node Express application. Might be there could be a different HTML template like EJX, Nunjux or any other things, but most of them are having the same functionality. And I try to cover most of the things which are required in the project creation from the scratch. And I try to explain each and every step so you guys can learn from the basics. Okay, so at the end, friends, this is a humble request to all of you. If you have learned something from this video, then please don't go without subscribing this channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon so you can get the notification of all of my upcoming videos. And your each and every subscription gives me a lot of confidence and support to make the video like this. And I see the people are watching the video but they are not subscribing, and you guys are supporting a lot for the movies videos, for the song videos. I'm seeing a lot of subscription and comments are going for those videos but not for us. So friends, it's take a lot of effort and time to making these videos. So please subscribe, like and comment and share to the people who really need it. Thanks for watching and have a good day.